Our reading today is from Matthew chapter 5, starting to read at verse 20. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who insults a brother or sister is answerable to the court, and anyone who says you fool will be in danger of the fire of hell. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount are hard. They're piercing and convicting. They read like a manifesto for his kingdom. Not a political manifesto, but a manifesto of the heart, of the attitudes. The Sermon on the Mount has always terrified me, because when I read the Standard, I am nowhere near it. Our reading today forms part of a section which starts by Jesus saying, "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish these things, but to fulfill them." There then follow several sections of, "You have heard that it was said, but I say." And then finally at the end of the chapter, "So then, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." Jesus is speaking to his disciples. The Pharisees are there on the fringes, but he is addressing primarily his disciples. And he's not taking issue with the law itself as set down by Moses, but with the false interpretation of the law. He wants us to understand that the law is not just external. Murder can be done without a physical weapon. It can be done in our hearts, with pride and anger. It can be done by our words in spite and in destruction. Jesus wants us to understand that if we have the love of God in our hearts, then we are going to have a heart to be reconciled with one another. A lack of concern about reconciliation is evidence of a lost and dead heart. So Jesus says these words to shake us out of our spiritual slumber. Guess what? We can break the law without anyone around us knowing that we have broken the law. Understand that the law for Jesus is a wondrous thing, because the law sets forth the character of God. It's a beautiful exposition of who God is, and it should cause us to be drawn to him. It shouldn't drive us away in fear. And our attitude to the law reflects our attitude to God. It's a diagnostic tool by which we can check our own hearts. The Pharisees want to know the minimum to get by. They're the guys looking for loopholes. Their response to the law was grudging, minimal, half-hearted, like the external compliance you might give to an unreasonable tyrant. Jesus is very clear that he is the ultimate law keeper. Only in union with him can his followers obey the law of God as they should, as joyful, willing obedience rendered up to a loving Heavenly Father. Jesus is telling this to his disciples because the lurking problem of Pharisaism is not very far away from any of us. If the law is God's and the law is good, and we only want to know what the minimum requirements are that we can get away with, what does that say about what we think about our God and his goodness towards us? As a student, I was profoundly struck one day by watching an anaesthetist fail to insert a needle into the correct space in somebody's back to administer a spinal anaesthetic before surgery. This anaesthetist was a godly man, and I knew him by reputation to be extremely competent and respected. This was the only session for which I was with him, and the only procedure of his that I watched, and he could not do it. He tried patiently. He repositioned the patient and tried again, but that needle just would not go in. He did not self-justify by making sure that I knew how rare or maybe even how unprecedented this failure was. He didn't blame the patient's arthritic spine or some substandard needle. He took responsibility, apologised, explained that it would have to be a general anaesthetic after all, and he got on with the job. I only ever saw him fail, but the manner in which he failed impressed me deeply. The humility and dignity with which he failed have stayed with me ever since. I can't imagine anything else he would have done that could have helped me more. Jesus is not saying, just go out and try harder. Just go out and obey the law and everything will be fine. No. He's confronting us with our moral and spiritual bankruptcy in the face of God's perfection. None of us are going to look good when held against that standard. The issue at stake is not whether we're going to fail. We are going to fail. The issue at stake is the manner in which we shall fail, because the manner in which we fail is what reveals the heart. It's a diagnostic tool. Will we self-justify by saying, that's not like me, or I didn't mean it? Will we blame shift onto others? Or will we be driven to gratitude, relief, and dependence upon him as we acknowledge our need for his grace?